either in your internal business or international business. So considering those points, Dr. Ajit, he suggested me that a topic like strategies for international business and fish processing sector will be helpful to you people. So I want to give you a brief talk and listen carefully. It will be quite informative for you people, especially those who are going to get into the professional jobs in future. So you should feel proud that you belong to a commodity which you call fish and is the most traded commodity in the world. And this is the one which is the most widely consumed also worldwide. So, and moreover, it is not that it has become stable. The market is going to expand and expand. So we believe that by 2023, the current global seafood value is around 125.2 billion US dollar.
सर प्लीज सर आप अनम्यूट कर लीजिए सर आप अनम्यूट कर लीजिए आपके स्क्रीन पर एक माइक का सिंबल शेयर हो रहा होगा तो आप उसको प्रेस करेंगे इट विल मेक यू अनम्यूट स्क्रीन पे
Yes, fine. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Now it is audible, sir.
Okay. So as I told you that in coming years, this seafood business is going to expand. And as I told you, by currently it is around 125.2 billion US dollar. And by 2023, it is expected to be $155.32 billion. Now, when it comes to the country, China is exporting the highest volume, followed by Indonesia and India. The highest catch is in China, followed by Indonesia and India. India ranks third in fisheries production and second in aquaculture. China is first, India is second. When you do the ranking, it looks like India is second, but if you see the real gap, see the main reason is like India is right now only 10 species, but China is doing more than 100 aquaculture of more than 100 species on commercial basis. China is also the largest fish and seafood processing industry. Now just have a look for the countries, the top 5 countries which are highest in the export. You can see that is EU, USA, China, Japan, South Africa. So if you see the value, it was like 56.5 US billion dollar value product is exported from European Union. Then followed by USA, China, Japan, and all that. And in future, this demand is going to increase. When you talk about the exporters, you can see that European Union is again first, China is second, Norway, Vietnam, and Chile, they follow them. India in export business with $6.6 billion is the seventh. Now, I was showing you this thing to show the importance of fish commodity in the world market. As I told you, it's the biggest commodity. But the fish is facing a challenge. When we export the material from different countries, including from India, the products, due to either quality reasons or food safety standards, either sometimes get detained, rejected, or destroyed on the national borders. Means when we export, there are veterinary people who collect the samples from the exported material, do the lab analysis, some visual sensory checks and all that. And if it is not as per the standard, and if there is something which can threaten the health of their local consumer, those kind of projects are rejected. Sometimes, to an extent, the entire consignment gets destroyed. So, which leads to a serious loss of fishery products. Now, not only that we lose in terms of the material, it also spoils the image of that country which spoils that product. So it becomes a sort of like a trade barrier. So it is very important to have an idea about the food safety issues, about the quality requirements of the importing countries. Moreover, there are some recent concerns which have developed in fish industry are like requirement of traceability, sustainability of the resources, social sustainability, environmental sustainability, economical sustainability. These are the new issues which are coming up in the field of fisheries. Another issue is the bioterrorism. That idea also we should have because of the incidents in US and a worldwide problem of terrorism, this new concept of bioterrorism is also entering into the fish industry. So basically, there is a need to understand, and companies should have, exporting companies should have strategies regarding the issues I spoke about, like quality control. They should have a quality control of product. They should have food safety of the product, traceability, sustainability, and bad. These are the basic strategies. And now to implement all these strategies, the top strategy is that there should be somebody in the country who will regulate all this. And that's what we call as the competent authority. So any competent authority, basically what happens, the business is not done between companies to companies. It is, in reality, it is done between one country to another country. Because any country, when it imports a good, for the country, it is very important. The two things are very important. First thing is the health of the consumer. It should not happen they import or they buy a product, and which is when consumed by the consumer, they become sick, or their health becomes an issue. So that is the first concern. Second thing, it should not happen that a variety of the fish or the fish which you have exported or the commodity which you exported, it creates a competition, a serious competition for their local commodities or fish commodities or fish varieties. It should not happen that for example, if the cost of your infrastructure is less, the cost of labor in your country is less, so you may produce a good product at a low price and you start selling in Europe. Now what will happen, their local fish, they get a serious competition. So everybody will start buying the fish which is coming from another country. So they make equal competition. They give the opportunity to the countries which are exporting fish to develop in a way basic infrastructures and all. The cost of production becomes competitive as compared to the fish in their local fish industry. So that's why they put certain legislations in place. And when you start implementing those legislation, definitely, for example, they say that the fish which you are cutting should be processed on a stainless steel table. The processors who are processing the fish, they should come in uniform. The factory which you are having should be neat and clean. Now, these things needs input. These things need money. So eventually what happens, the cost of production becomes more. And then you cannot sell that product in the export market at a very low price. So that way a local equal competition is developed. Now, to do all this thing, these terms are not spoken by an importer to an exporter. Rather, two countries, importing and exporting countries, they have to make a agreement, a mutual signed agreement. So for making that agreement, the first requirement is that the country, exporting country, should have an regulatory body, which we call as a competent authority. Now, this is the competent authority which ensures that only those plants are exporting which are certified by them. Now, this certification has got a criteria. There are standards. And they go, they visit the plant, and they look for that all those standards, whether are in place or not in the plants. For example, they will start from the infrastructure. They see that surroundings. They also look into the facilities, their storage facilities, their freezing facilities. Means all the points which can compromise with the food quality, fish quality, or the fish safety or food safety, they look into that. Now, I think most of you people, they know that nowadays this HACCP, the Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point, has become a very important aspect in fish industry. So now gradually we have to do the required also the lecture. So let's start the strategy, the important strategy called the food quality. See, when you have to give a quality, the totality of features and characteristics stated in the the definition looks a bit complicated, but it is very simple. Basically, when you, so few things you tell the supplier and you give him a specification. For example, you go buy a refrigerator. So you may say, I need 180-liter refrigerator. But when you bring to home, you expect it in the shop. Or when you're exporting, for example, fish, or when you are giving a product of specification for packing fish, you say that, okay, my fish should be packed in a polythene bag. But you do not tell him that it should be packed in a LD, LLDP bag. So there are certain things which you tell the seller or the exporter, and there are certain which you believe that supplier will be providing you those things. For example, a product specification. So when you give a very clear-cut product specification, so those points are, we call them as a stated need. But there are things you take them You think that supplier understands it, so you don't tell. For example, you said that I need a clean fish, but you don't, it will be washed with the water. So your stated need is that it should be the washed fish. But your implied need is definitely he should be the. Now given you example how the specification normally these industries they use and they place the order to a factory, how they describe the product. I have taken an example of the product I'm working for. So I think you can read this thing like basically the description, what type of product, what type of raw material, from which zone it is coming, what is the method of fishing, what is the method of production, international market to be like a GMO status, declaration about the integrated to the product should be in compliance. But when it comes to the buy to buy, there are certain things that, for example, the importing, processing, fillet, then definitely people talk about the structure. Means the fillet should not be soft, it should be firm. When you press it, I think on some practicals, to know the freshness of the fish, there are certain video sensory parameters. So for fillet and all, it should not be soft. Means if you press the fillet in a fresh form, so that's what they say. Now regarding trimming, see the fish has got some part of the red meat. So if the red bit grayish or brownish, so becomes a bit unacceptable. So many people, they prefer that trimming should be proper. So when we use the word deeper skin in commercial, in industry, deeper skin means that the red part should go with the skin. So skin glazing, you know, that to avoid the degradation of the product and all, you weight, packaging, what type of packaging will be there, net weight, gross weight, labeling. So these are the things the importers that give to the supplier that these are my specification, and make sure that when you're packing the product or when you're processing the product, these specifications are followed. Like storage conditions, what temperature of storage, like you know that -18 degrees centigrade for frozen product. There should be target group that which, see, there are certain products which may having allergens and all, which may compromise with the old age people or the infants or the pregnant ladies and all. So if there is something like that, that must be mentioned, like, okay, how you have to eat the product, it has to be eaten raw, it has to be, so that type of info there. Shelf life should be cleared. And very important is the recall procedure. Your carton should have consumer after eating, he becomes sick or any non-conformity is reported in your product which you have exported. See that batch number, they can inform you that such and such batch was found with the non-conformity or was having health issue or whatever. You recall that product room, so you can recall product and find that. So now comes to the quality. I told you that in quality there were two important terminology, what we call stated and employed needs. The another two terms which are there in the food industries are which we should have a clear idea that what are they like? These terms are like quality control and quality assurance. Many people, they use these terms in a similar way. They consider they are same, but they are totally different things. Quality control is basically is a product oriented and focuses on the defect identification and final product testing. And now to check the quality, you do the in the lab analysis. And then you say, okay, fine. The product is suitable for human consumption. Or by visual sensory requirements, you just see by when the product is produced, you check, okay, fine. There's no gaping in the fillet. Fillet trimming is proper. The freezing, the product is frozen, has reached to -18. All those things you check at the end of the production. So this process we call it the quality control. But this, if you have only quality control, this is not a foolproof system. Because I realize that product is good or bad, it has already become bad. Assurance, because as you know, the samples are randomly. If you are exporting 40 ton, 40-footer container which is having like 20 fillet of that 24 ton or 26 ton consignment. So you go for the random checks. So maybe the sample quality assurance is a process step control system. For example, when you, if you get into that, when you wash the fish, at that point you control it there only. So basically, you do not allow only hazard to get into the final product which is produced is safe.
Sir, sir, your PPTs are not visible. Your PPT is not visible to all of us.
What is not?
Your
Sir,
PPT
please share your screen.
presentations.
Please share your screen, sir.
Just a second. How to share this?
You simply press a button, screen share. I think at the bottom there is one option, share screen.
Okay. We control the hazard on the process step. We do not allow the hazard to enter into the process at that particular process step only. And with the quality assurance concept, the HACCP thing came into a picture, and all the factories which are exporting, they have the requirement, they must implement HACCP system in their factory. Now itself, it's a one full lecture, it may be more than a lecture also, but in brief, to establish a HACCP system in factory, you should have these 12 steps. So basically, you can have implement the HACCP system. You should have a team, which that team should be from like, you should take the people from every field, somebody who knows really about the processing, who knows about the microbiology, people who know even from the engineering side, means multidisciplinary people should complain. And then we have to discuss the product. Yeah, exactly what is the product. I told you that of the product and all those things. Intent, as I told you before also, whether this product is going to be consumed by somebody who can get compromised with some food safety issues very easily. As I told you about allergen, those kind of, so we have to mention that this product which category of the people. Then to step right from the fish receiving to the point of shipment or your final storage and shipment. After making the flow diagram, you go to your production line and check the flow diagram which you have made. It is correct. It is or the production line which is there. It is as per your flow diagram. And yes, then you list the hazards, like what type of hazards are possible, like basically the biological, chemical, and physical hazards. Biological, they are like your pathogens, salmonella, those list. They can chemical hazards, the use of pesticide. And presence of heavy metals and all in the metal in the product, big bone in the product, any hard plastic in the product. So there are 7 principles of the HACCP which we have to adopt while making the HACCP plan. So because people have studied in BSc and MSc, so I'm getting to other details rather giving you much description on HACCP. Now you know that HACCP basically cannot be implemented without its foundation or prerequisite practices. Means to implement the HACCP, you must have in your factory the prerequisite like environment handling, proper handling, and you should have a maintenance department. You should have that. You should have people to monitor personal hygiene. Your establishment design and all should be made in a way that it does not compromise the product safety. Line control when your process are required, like it should not goes above 4 degrees. So you have to make sure that product is properly iced. Water and ice, which is very important. In the water itself for use, it can create a mass contamination to the entire product. Pest control, you know, there are certain pests which can contaminate your product. So there should be a pest control program in your factory, like rodent should not enter, bird should not enter, fly should not enter. So you should have those kind of cockroaches, they should not enter. So you should have some sort of control so that product management of that, the offal which comes out of the fish or your processing, you should have a system to timely remove that. Then labeling it. Hello?
Sir.
So these are the things. Then traceability, labeling, there should be proper labeling and all. So there should be proper labeling and all. And then very important issues on traceability, which I told you, traceability and recall, etc. In before also, that they are very important aspect. You should have a proper batch number on your cartons, so that if any product has got any problems, batch number to the voting company, and from there it can be the final very important aspect for to implement all this, whether it is the HACCP or it is the prerequisite programs, and all, is the training. As I told you, the traceability, it is a requirement from the EU that they pass the regulation general food law. They call it regulation EC 178/202, which defines the trace and flow of food, feed, and ingredients through all stage production, processing, and your material is coming and where it is going. So in the international marketing, we call it as a one step back, one step forward requirement. So for example, if I talk about the chain of fish supply, so it starts say from fishermen, then fishermen, they bring and give the fish to fish supplier. Fish suppliers, they take it to the processors. Processors, they process and export to the importers. Then from importer, it goes to the distributors, the retailers, and onwards to consumers. So what is the requirement? Like a back means who bought the fish to me, and one step forward means to whom I supplied the fish. So as those records with not only knowing that to whom you have sold and from whom you got should be there in place. So that is what is very important. So this was an aspect on the traceability. Now the issue is another very important point is the sustainability. If you see the definition, it says that harvesting and farming fish stocks in a way that meets our present needs without compromising the ability to meet our future needs. Basically, what it means that responsible fishing. It should not happen that suppose you have a resource. It should not be harvested or it should not be exploited blindly. We must keep a sense that this fish has also should be available for our generation. But now what have people becoming business greedy? If any fish starts giving money and becomes valuable in those fishes start catching, they do not even look into the different fisheries regulations and acts and blindly, even the small fish which are not even, have grown enough, have not become even table size, people they harvest. So all this non-responsible attitude regarding it, like pressure on them, eventually the becomes unsustainable. I'll be going to give you a very good example of this because the fishery perch or Lake Victoria perch fisheries, it is already at the edge of unsustainability. So I have to give you a case history of which will make very clear in your mind that how much it is important. And in other countries like US and all, even in Japan, they do not want a fish which is not sustainable. So if any fishery becomes unsustainable, you get problem in exporting that. It becomes like a trade barrier. So you have to make sure that fishery which you are dealing with, it is handled in a responsible way. It is operations which all related to the fisheries are handled in a responsible way. So you do not overharvest the fish and it remains available for the coming generations. Nowadays, on sustainability, other issues also, what we call as a like social sense. For example, this European countries and all the consumers are very sensitive. They don't fish on their level. If that fish was caught by a fisherman who is not having even a home which is weatherproof, who is not having a medical facility, if the situation of this fishermen or suppliers is not good, only the processing factories are minting money, so they don't like that. Telling to us, make sure it is socially sustainable. There's a trend that processors, they mint money and they do not take care about the fish supply and all. So they pass through the poverty. Their kids are not getting education. They are sick. There's no medical facility available to them. They cannot treat their. So these type of issues, social issues, are of very much concern nowadays in European countries. In economical sense. See, what happens, this fish processing factories are not just to make money, sometimes they're not transparent in their price. Most of the fish which comes to, which is delivered to the factories and all, it is through the middleman, what you call as a supplier. Now suppliers, they do not tell the right price of the factory to the fishermen. Suppose a fish is like 600 rupees they are getting per kg from the factory, but to the fishermen, they may not tell the fact. They may tell, oh, I'm getting only 400. And accordingly, they pay them. So basically, there's no fairness in the trading. There's no transparency in the trading. So if these things become known to the importing country consumers, they do not like that fish. So we have to make sure that fish which we are exporting is ecologically, socially, and economically sustainable. That's very important point. Now, there are certain examples worldwide, the fish which they faced, the issue of sustainability. And already the scientists have told that the way we are consuming fish, if we do not become responsible for that and we do not do a responsible fishing by year 2050, so many fishes can become unsustainable. So we have to be very conscious about these issues. So here I've given some examples, the fishes which are already under pressure, the fishes which is already under pressure and have become almost unsustainable. Like Chilean sea bass, this fish is very tasty, and because the fish is very tasty, so yes, there's a huge demand in the market. So people started doing overfishing. Second negative point, physiologically also the fish reproduce slowly. So both these points, one side it is overfishing, other side the fish is reproducing slowly. So it became a reason for unsustainability of this Chilean sea bass. Bluefin big eye tuna, you know that this fish gives the maturity in a long time. Moreover, the problem is like the fish moves in schools. So when it moves in schools, it becomes very easy to harvest them. So, and irrespective of small, big, there's no selection, all kind of fish comes on the board. So the many fish which do not breed even one time, they get harvested. And so the stock is gradually depleting. Shark there's a well-known story. You people remember that even some issues of harpooning and all, people they catch the shark just because of their fin rays. They cut the fins, and the fin rays is a very perishable item. They make soup and all that. So, and the remaining fish, what they do, they throw it back into the lake. Because of that, almost 80% the catches have already been declined. Similarly, the case is with the grouper and all that. Now, as I was talking to you, that the fishery which I'm handling is the Lake Victoria perch. This lake and this fishery has got a very interesting history. I think you people know about the Lake Victoria, which is the biggest tropical and the second biggest freshwater lake in the world after Lake Superior. The lake is so huge, is like 6,800 kilometers square surface area it has got, and shoreline it has got, and is surrounded by three countries. The 49% share of the lake goes with the Tanzania, 45% with Uganda, and 6% with Kenya. The lake is known for the Nile perch fisheries, or what we call the Lake Victoria perch fisheries. But you're surprised to know that this one of the leading fisheries, up to 1950, this fish was not in the Lake Victoria. So in 1950, few people unofficially they introduced some fish in this lake from Lake Kyoga and all. And in 1960, FAO scientists and all, they decided, okay, such a big lake is not having any commercial fish. So with that intention, they introduced some fish into the Lake Victoria. So the fish which was not there, so it is basically not the native fish or indigenous fish of the Lake Victoria. It was introduced sometime in 1950s and 60s. Now by the year 1970, the fish started colonizing, and the fish which was not there in the lake up to 1950, 1960 became almost like 80% of the lake fauna. Now, how it became the 80% of the lake fauna, this lake, people used to call it as Darwin's dreamland, a dream pond. Darwin's dream pond. Why? Because you people know that Darwin was a scientist, a naturalist who was working on the origin of new species. This lake was known for the speciation of more than 300 species of haplochromines. Now, after introduction of this Nile perch, these 300 haplochromines were destroyed. They became extinct because this fish dominated in the lake. The fish which was not there in the lake became more than 80%, and the native fish of the lake, which I'm talking about, haplochromines, they got totally lost from the lake. Means they became less than 20%. Which is considered to be the biggest mass destruction of any aquatic vertebrate in the world. So when we talk about the sustainability issue, there's the issue with the fish. Now, it created the problem for other fishes, but itself now has become unsustainable. The reason is that, as I told you, by 1980s, the fish was like almost 80% in the lake. And the fish grows like anything. This goes up to 200 kgs. Is a voracious feeder. It grows very fast. So when people around in these three countries that I told you, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, when they observed this fish in the lake, they started commercially utilizing this fish and started exporting to Europe, Japan, US, Middle East and all. Now by year 1992, there were almost 30 Nile perch processing factories which were established in these three countries. Now it's very difficult to believe that by in the year 1995, per day from this lake, almost 1,100 tons of fish was harvested. Every day. Now you can see this lake is like a miracle. You take out 1,100 tons of fish every day. Now, when such a huge amount of the fish was harvested, as which was expected, the fish became unsustainable. Now, from 1997, the catches started going down, 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 down. Today is a status that the fish which was getting harvested almost 1,100 tons a day, it has reached almost not even to 400 tons per day. Almost one third reduction in the catches. Now, the fish is giving live blood to millions of the people in the Lake June. Now, it is very important. It became a very important issue for the government of these three countries because lot of revenue, when we export, lot of revenue goes even to the government. Now, where the countries were getting revenues for 1,100 tons of fish, now they're getting for not even 400 tons. So there are issues. There are social issues, plus there are government income related issues with this fish now. Now, although a bit late, but later the government they realized, and then to control the fishing, non-responsible fishing in the lake, they implemented certain regulations. Like when we talk about the uses of net, now there's a rule here in these three countries that monofilament gill nets should not be used. I see monofilament gill nets. You people must be knowing that they are very thin. So when people go for the fishing, most of them they get lost. They get worn out and go into the lake. And now this type of nets, because they are cheap, so fishermen they want to buy them and use for the fishing. But what is happening when they get detached from the boat, they get into the lake bottom and they get wrinkled, and we call a ghost fishing. They start doing ghost fishing because when this type of nets are lying on the lake bottom, they do not see that which fish is getting entangled into that. So which is again not a sustainable way of doing the fishing. So government has stopped the fishermen and told them not to use monofilament nets. They made the regulation because what was happening, the fish which was not matured also, not even has a spawn one time, people started harvesting by using beach scenes, trawl nets, hooks below 9 number, using explosives and chemicals, harpooning, so many things. So government, they told, no, we should not harvest a fish which is below 50 centimeter, and we should also not process the fish which is above, or harvest the fish which is above 85 centimeter. So for that, they made a mesh size regulation that fish should not be, the net which is used for the fishing should not be more than 6 inch. Should not be less than, mesh size should not be less than 6 inch. Moreover, the vertical depth of the net should not be more than 26 mesh. People had a habit to get more and more fish. They were vertically joining the net. There's a one layer of the net, below that second net, third net, fourth net, so that they can block the whole bottom of the whole length of the depth of the lake. And that was also doing an uncontrolled fishing. So government made a fisheries act that people should not use any net which is more than 26 mesh in the depth. So this really started working. Especially the implementation of that any factory should process less than 50 centimeter or above 85 centimeter of fish really is working, and we can see some change. The fishery is reviving, and we can see the better sign of the fish, like getting fish between 3 to 5 kg became very less sometime. Now that type of fish is coming to the factories, and we see that there's a huge control. People used to harvest a small fish and sell everywhere. We do not see that type of activity around, and it has given a lot of positive sign for the revival of Nile perch fisheries. Now, as I told you that social sustainability standards, there were concern about this Nile perch fishing in Europe, somebody made a film, Darwin's Nightmare. As I told you, this lake was known to be uh, Darwin's dream pond. Now, a producer from the Europe, he made a movie, Darwin's Nightmare, just to spoil the image of Nile perch fisheries. He has shown a lot of negative points of the Nile perch fishery, which were baseless. Like he has mentioned somewhere that uh, uh, fish processors are minting money, as I told you in the beginning of the lecture, but the fishermen, their life is pitiable. Uh, their housing, their social, economical status, social status is very poor, and he has shooted all those things in a very bad way, and he made that movie, and it was a documentary, and which was released in Europe, which gave a very negative impact in the European market. It became a strong trade barrier. People started believing that this fish, which is coming from the Lake Victoria, is not socially and economically sustainable. Anyway, we made a very good effort on this side, like uh, factories, they started putting their effort, and we went for eco-labeling. And eco-labeling, which assures that the fish which is harvested or which is exported, it is having uh, ecological, social, and economical sustainability. And after that, yes, the image is becoming positive, and we cannot say that it has improved 100%, yes, but we have done quite well, and I'm sure very shortly it will improve. So, as I told you, that issue of the sustainability is very important. Otherwise, it can be a very serious trade barrier in the business. Now, the another thing which can be an obstruction in the export and all is the bioterrorism. Uh, we know that this 11th of September 2001 incidents of United States. Uh, After that, there was a threat, one anthrax case to a limit also, I think, happened in US. After that, US government, they made a act we call Bioterrorism Act 2002, uh, which demand that when we are doing the export, we must inform in advance, and the factories which are exporting should be registered with Food and Development Authority of US. So basically, you people might have heard about this thing. The way there are other terrorism, people use explosives and all. This is a biological weapon, which is very much threatening. So it can be very serious. So people in US and other countries, they are very much concerned about that the product which is reaching there is not contaminated or is not having something, any bacteria or virus or germs, which can seriously threat the health of their citizen. So there are certain bacteria and viruses like Bacillus anthrax, which causes anthrax, Clostridium botulinum. You know, those people who have studied canning, they know the importance of this Clostridium botulinum. Yersinia pestis, which causes a plague. Varroa major, which causes smallpox. Salmonella is, yeah, in food industry well known. Escherichia coli 0157H7. Shigella, these they can cause the food poisoning. So for the safety of their citizen, they made this by BTA, what we call as the Bioterrorism Act, and it became effective from on 2012. Now, since this concern is there in the export market, it is very important that factories, they have a system in their factory which can protect the product which is getting exported to these countries which are concerned about this. like personnel. When we say personnel means the employees of the factory. There should be, when you're appointing the people, there should be known history. It should not happen that the guy has got some bad background and when he comes to the factory, he does some nonsense. So while appointing, we must take some reference. Must take like uh, from where he comes in. The background of the person must be known. Moreover, when they're getting into the factory, they should be checked. Workers should be checked properly that they're not bringing something which is which can contaminate the product and can create this biosecurity or bioterrorism issues. Similarly, raw material also when we are procuring, we have to make sure that it is not having something which can create this issue regarding bioterrorism. When you are buying a chemical, it should not happen. The company gets somebody supplies you a chemical and you use it and it creates some havoc with the product, and when it goes, it becomes a hazard for the consumers. So like all this, like production area, storage, shipping, receiving. Now, very important point is like water and ice supply. One has to be very careful. Many factories, they do not have a control on their water supply. The tanks are open, they are not locked, they're not sealed. Now anybody can go and do something nonsense with that. So they have to be very careful that water supply is well secured. It is not having people, those who are using chlorine and all, they should be very responsible people, and a follow-up should be made with that, all that. Because if the water becomes bad, you can understand the amount of threat it will create. So factories should be very careful about the security of the water and ice supplies. Mail handling, you know that there are certain viruses and all which can be kept in a powder form. Suppose somebody put something in a envelope, and the moment somebody opens the envelope, he gets infected with a kind of virus which is there in the envelope. And also factory should have a place where they should keep it should not open in a public place and all that. A particular open post room and all that, where this mails and all should be. When we say mail, I'm not talking about the electronic mail. It is regarding the like envelopes and all which they come by post. So with some interruptions, definitely I have completed my talk. If you people have something to discuss with me, you can talk. And I wish to say thank you very much for listening me and giving you time. Dr. Ajit, I'm through.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your such a valuable
Yes,
talk,
I'm through.
which has really enlightened our knowledge, information, particularly in the field of fish processing related to quality assurance and food safety. And you have discussed about various strategies through which we can make our food safe for export purpose, and not only for export purpose, even though we can, after applying all these strategies, food should be safe for domestic consumption also. Usually when we talk about food safety, it is only related with the international market, but nowadays living standards demand food safety. It is also a major concern in domestic market also. Thank you, sir. And now the forum is meet is open to all the students. If they have any query, any question, any doubt, or they want to ask anything, they can put their question directly using their microphones, or they can drop their queries in chat box also. Students, please. Students, if you have any query, any question, you can ask. Sir, by the time they will decide whether they have to ask anything or not. Sir, I have a query on the behalf of students. Sir, many times they ask, they want to join any multinational company. So how they can approach to any company for recruitment purpose?
Yeah, that is quite possible. See, I do not know if the in-campus interviews and all done in the WASU, but that is one of the things you people can invite some international companies to come and conduct yearly interviews and all and appoint the guys. Moreover, like you people can make use of links like us. You
Yes.
can make use of links like us. There are so many fisheries graduates working outside the countries. So you can contact them and send those who are interested, they can send their CVs. And many of the people from fisheries field are there working with us. And in fact, many people from Pantnagar are still working with me. So it should not be an issue. When they feel like they should feel free